Hello! Happy St. Patrick's Day. You may not know this, but St. Patrick's Day is a special time for me as a patent attorney. So why is this? Well, one, green is my favorite color, and as you can see, I am wearing my favorite green shirt right now, so St. Patrick's Day is always good for that. But more to the point, patents are very similar to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. They are tremendously valuable, but it can sometimes seem like an epic, almost impossible journey to get there. And so in the spirit of St. Patrick's Day, what I'm here to do is talk about luck. The patent application process leaves a lot of things to chance and outside of the control of the applicant. Art unit, examiner assignment, what prior art happens to show up, how the examiner interprets that prior art. Even if you have an amazing invention, there is still a whole lot that's out of your control. And so what can you do to make yourself more lucky at the patent office? Well, I'm not a big believer in superstition, but there are some things you can do. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about 3 things you can do to make yourself a little bit more lucky at the USPTO. So number 1, be in the right place at the right time. Now, if you've ever been on the job market, you know that qualifications are only part of the process. It's just as important to get your resume in front of the right people. Same for business. It's all about location. If you have a storefront and there's no foot traffic, you need to move. Ultimately, runaway success, it's not just about the product, it's about the positioning. Think of it this way. We're all looking for that pot of gold, but sometimes it just makes sense you got to get onto the right rainbow first. When it comes to patents, positioning is like your art unit classification, and you have to get your application into a more favorable technology class. That is one where your leprechaun, for St. Patrick's Day, is going to give you a fair shake and give you the proper evaluation of your invention. And there are some things you can do to boost your chances of success. There's software you can do to help select your art unit. You can also go into the art unit definitions online and look for keywords to include in your claims. But I'm here to say there's actually more to it than that, because your patent examiner isn't just going to look at your claims. I mean, they might be influential in getting your application classified, but they're also going to look at the disclosure as well. And if you have claims that say one thing, but your disclosure is written for a different kind of invention, that's going to cause a problem for you. And so what I would say is don't just look at the claims. Don't just look at, say, an art unit selector or keywords that you might include, but think of your invention sort of at a high level and say, all right, how can I characterize this in a way that is going to emphasize the points I want to emphasize and is going to avoid the points that might get this put in front of an examiner who may not really consider the technical aspects of the invention, because that's not really what their art unit focuses on. Maybe they focus on things like the outside business case or the outside business application, which are not really where I want to go. And so the first thing to do, be in the right place at the right time. And in order to do that, make sure you not just focus on the right place, but paint an overall picture that puts your invention in the right place in the examiner's mind. Now, number 2, take another roll of the dice. All right, so you've done your best. You've tried to put your application in the right art unit, but, things still aren't working out. Your examiner, it's problematic. You've hit a roadblock. You don't think you're getting a good examination of your case. The art search doesn't really match, or the art is being applied in a way that just doesn't make sense. Now, prosecution isn't really Yahtzee, but in this kind of a situation, you need another shot, or you could definitely use another shot. So how can you do it? Well, we just got through talking about you can't choose your examiner or art unit, but you can get another chance to maybe get in front of someone who it'll work better. How do you do it? Well, file a continuation. Now, people who are listening to this may be thinking, William, that doesn't make sense, because continuations are generally put in front of the same examiner as the parent case, and that's true. However, that isn't always true. So, for example, let's say you got a restriction requirement as part of your initial prosecution and your continuation is actually divisional. That may not go to the same examiner. Also, what if it's not a continuation, it's a continuation in part? Now, I'm not a huge fan of continuations in part from a legal perspective, because they end up cutting off your patent term, and the new material doesn't get your original filing date, it gets your new filing date. So there's some downsides to it. On the other hand, while there may be downsides from a legal perspective, from a procedural perspective, they may help, because a continuation in part may be more likely to be viewed in a way that focuses on the technical aspects that you want to focus on and be more appropriately examined by the examiner. You can also try and file your application differently. For instance, let's say I filed my application, standard non-provisional, fair enough. If I filed my application under the Track 1 program, maybe it's going to get sent to a different examiner, the Track 1 application, than the original normal utility application. Also, when I file it, I might be able to take advantage of the fact that I don't have to submit my priority claim initially. I can submit my priority claim several months after my initial filing under Section 1.7a. And so maybe what I need to do is just file a new one, try and get a whole new start, later on add in the priority claim, but try and do it in such a way that I am getting the best possible examination for my application, rather than just going back into the same place I was, hitting the same impasse and making no progress. Is it guaranteed? No. But that's why we're talking about luck. And in some cases like this, you just need to take another roll of the dice in order to go forward. All right, so number 3, do not let the bad luck in. Now, all right, let's imagine that you've done these things, right? You've tried to get your application into the right place. You've tried to, make sure that you're not getting into an impasse or try and get around the impasse if you're there, but here you are under final rejection. What do you do? Well, I'm not one to go out of my way to avoid stepping on cracks in the sidewalk or crossing paths with a black cat or wearing an evil eye bracelet, but I do think you can avoid the bad luck of a first action final after an RCE. And that's really super annoying, right? Because you filed this request for continued examination, you paid money for it, you paid extra money, there's patent term adjustment hits, and now instead of getting another sort of go round, the examiner says, I think this is basically the same thing as we saw before. I could have made this final before if you just represented it. Therefore, no, I'm going to give you another final right now on the first action. And this hurts you, obviously. You don't get another chance to amend. It cuts short your prosecution. This is not great. So how do you avoid this? Well, one way of doing it is before filing your RCE, file an after final response, either standard or under the AFC 2.0 program. And by doing this, what you're doing is if the examiner looks at it and says, I'm going to give, I'll enter this amendment, I'll give you substantive discussion of it, great. You've done that without an RCE. Good job for you. On the other hand, the examiner, and this is much more common in my experience, might say, no, I don't think this is something that I'm going to enter. Take further searching consideration, raises new issues. Fair enough, annoying, but again, that's what's most likely to happen. However, in that case, what you can do, now you file your RCE, and the examiner cannot make the next action final because they've already said it raises new issues, and so it would be inappropriate to just give you a new final rejection rather than a non-final rejection where you can amend or otherwise present arguments based on however the examiner addresses those new issues. So don't let the bad luck in, and file your after final response before your RCE to avoid the bad luck of a first action final rejection. So that's 3 ways of improving your luck at the patent office. But now I have a bonus. Yes, a bonus, which is ultimately there's no such thing as beginner's luck in patent prosecution. And in fact, I think it's quite the opposite. As I have advanced in my career, gotten more experience, I have found that I've gotten better at targeting my arguments to different examiners and to different situations. And even then, there are still things, right? I mean, I might face an examiner I've never seen before. That happens all the time. And so what do we do? How do we get lucky without having to rely on something as unreliable as beginner's luck? Well, I prefer to use other people's luck. If someone else has gotten lucky, great. I can tail ride on that. And so what I'll do is I'll use a tool like the Arguminer patent prosecution software to look for examples of responses that were successful in situations that are similar to mine. Someone else gets lucky, great. I don't need to worry about luck because I have something that's already proven out. And in doing that, I can get the best results for me without having to take any unnecessary rolls of the dice. So there it is. I hope everyone has a happy St. Patrick's Day. I hope you all get lucky during patent prosecution. And I wish you all good luck and good patents. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.